Us Americans in general have way too much stuff, and we don't just have it, we go back, we buy more, and we toss the old stuff. But since living in the Dominican Republic, my spending on clothing and non-essential goods has gone down to just about 13% of what it was when I first moved here 3 years ago. Before I talk about my personal experience, let me just share a few statistics. Americans spend $1.2 trillion annually on non-essential goods, in other words, items they do not need. The 12% of the world's population that lives in North America and Western Europe account for 60% of private consumption spending, while the 33% living in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa account for only 3.2%. 3.1% of the world's children live in America, but they own 40% of the toys consumed globally. In 1960, the average family had 2.4 children, and the average home was around 1,100 square feet. By 2010, the average American family had only 0.9 children and 2,300 square feet. In 2014, the storage unit industry banked $154 billion in revenue. That's more revenue than the Hollywood film industry in that same year. The average American family spends $1,700 on clothes annually. The average American throws away 65 pounds of clothing annually. The average American woman owns 30 outfits. In 1930, that figure was 9. And I include this last quote due to the time, 1930 versus today. One major cause of the consumerist nature of American society is the fact that during World War II, a consensus emerged that the solution to a post-war economy would be to create an economy based on mass consumption. And so that's what the US has become, a place where large-scale consumption is normal. Since living in the Dominican Republic, I dare say I have become less consumerist with both buying things online and in a physical store. Online because I know there's just an extra obstacle to getting things here. If you didn't watch my last video, I talk more about it there. But basically, it just takes longer to get here. We have to go to get the packages ourselves, and we have to pay again for the packages here. So it sort of takes out a little bit of the fun of getting a surprise package at your doorstep. So in what ways is my lifestyle different here, and what factors influence my consumption? First, I don't have access to a car here, and while I am perfectly comfortable using Uber or even public transportation, it does make it less convenient to just go shopping for fun. My husband and I would actually frequently go to the mall when we were dating, just for something cheap to do to get out of my shared apartment. Although we hardly ever bought anything, there were definitely a few unnecessary purchases I made, whether it was a soft pretzel or a pair of earrings. But I definitely never walked out with several shopping bags filled with items. One reason could be just unfamiliarity with most stores here, but I did check out several that I'd never heard of. Sometimes I would go to an American store like Forever 21 and just gawk at the prices because even though that wouldn't be really the first place I would shop in the US, it was very interesting to see how marked up everything American brand is here. For example, a $5 crop top might be $15 or upwards here. But now that we're married, we have our own place, we are very much homebodies, we just stay home and only really go to the mall to go to the movie theater. Which brings me to point number 2. One thing I'm not saying is that the Dominican Republic has no consumerism whatsoever. But there are a few differences. One major category where people do spend money is on entertainment here and less on non-essential goods. While Americans in 2020 were hiding out in our houses, shopping online, getting packages constantly delivered, here artists were having clandestine concerts and they were very well attended. But as I mentioned, I'm a homebody. We go to the movies maybe like once every 3 months, and we haven't spent much else on entertainment. Another point about the cultural differences is that Dominicans, I feel like, are more likely to keep the things that they buy. Americans maybe will exchange it for the next new thing we see, or even just buy doubles or extras of things. But Dominicans are more likely to keep things around once they buy it. So I feel that is something that I also do a lot. Number 3, when shopping in person, I only really go to one grocery store because it is walking distance. And the supermarket strictly has groceries. In fact, I was looking for a pair of scissors the other day, something basic, and I couldn't even find them. I don't know if I've ever even seen a pen and paper, but it could just be because I'm not looking for it. As mentioned, I don't really go to a department store. The closest one would be in a mall, and I hardly ever go there unless it's to go to maybe the bank or the electrical company. So I never really see those big signs advertising new things for the new season or something like that. At most, the grocery store will put Christmas cookies near the front or put out gift baskets for Christmas. But I don't feel like I'm being manipulated by clever marketing tactics like if I were in Target or constantly bombarded by ads telling me to buy useless junk. Basically, I have far less opportunities to shell out money on junk that probably won't be useful in a year. Am I saying I have no opportunities? No. In fact, to get to the grocery store, to get to the gym, I have to walk through a plaza that has numerous stores selling clothing, accessories. There's a barbershop or two, a nail salon, ice cream, fast food. Plenty of things to give me an opportunity to buy something. In addition, there are people handing out flyers for anything from the eyeglasses shop to the barbershop. The guy gave me that and I was like, and he said, for your eyebrows or something. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna pay to wait in line and have someone pluck my 4 hairs that I might pluck for me. No thanks. And number 4 is that I want to go back to the US someday. And I know that you can only bring 2 suitcases with you between here and there, at least according to all the airlines that I've traveled with. Side note, I actually got into a fiasco in the airport one time, learning this the hard way. What happened is that both my bags were overweight. This was my second year coming to teach in the DR. I was told by one worker that I had to take stuff out of the bags or pay the overweight fees, and interrupting this to say, bless my dad for always paying those. Yes, he had to pay them every single time. I'm very sorry. I'm trying to have less stuff now. Another worker told us we could just go over and buy another bag and fill it up with the extra stuff so that none of the bags would be overweight. I felt in my heart that that was wrong. As I mentioned, this was my second year. I read everywhere they could only have 2 checked bags between Dominican Republic or the Caribbean in general and the US. So my dad, again, bless his heart for all the trouble I put him through, goes over and buys one of these bags. It's kind of like one of those huge reusable grocery bags from IKEA. It has no structure, it's made of this blue tarp. So we start opening the suitcases and throwing stuff in. I mean, I was probably the more frantic one throwing the stuff. My dad was trying to be more organized, but this bag had no structure. It wasn't keeping anything folded. Things were getting unrolled and just in a mess. When we close the suitcases back up and take everything over to the bag check, the first guy tells us, what are you doing? I told you you could only have 2 bags. He said we can return the huge ugly blue bag and get the money back. So we opened everything up, and of course now everything is significantly less organized than the first time I packed it in the quiet, peaceful environment of my home, because mind you, this is in the middle of JFK Airport. We miraculously fit everything back into the suitcases, which were already cram-packed to begin with. My dad manages to get me in the front of the line to pay the overweight bag fees. Again, thank you to him for doing that and for paying them. I don't know what I would have done, because at this point I was stressing. I was cutting it pretty close to the time when all checked bags were supposed to be checked. Bless him for paying the fees. Unfortunately, when he tried to get the refund, the guys were telling him that they could not do that, but he put his foot down and he did end up getting the refund for that ugly blue tarp bag. After that, everything turned out fine. I got on the plane, my bags made it, but it was a stressful situation that I would not like to repeat. Huge thank you to my dad always for all the help when I'm traveling. All that just to say, I would rather not repeat that situation. So personally, I've not felt the need to buy a lot of stuff being here, knowing that my bags were already overweight when I came here. And when I do go back, I will let you know how packing goes, because I do want to try to keep it more minimalist. So considering those 4 factors, how have my consumption habits changed since moving to the DR? When I first moved here in 2020, during the months that I was here, I spent an average of $227 per month on clothing and non-essential goods. I will say these were mostly purchases online. And I do want to offer an excuse. My excuse is that year I did spend a lot of money because I had just finished with my first full-time job, my teaching job in Honduras, and I had all this cash. I'd saved a lot while I was there, and I was just spending it like crazy, to be honest. But I was buying a lot of things, clothing, that were basics that I still use to this day and I plan to continue using. And the spending that I'm talking about that year was almost all around Black Friday, and I was buying things that were on sale, but anyways, that number does seem rather large still. In 2021, my average spending on clothing and non-essential goods went down to $203 per month. In 2022, it dropped to $70 per month, and in this year, it has dropped to an average of $18 spent on non-essential goods. One caveat is that I do have a lot of Amazon gift cards, so those have been kind of what I've been using instead. Now I know you're watching thinking, how is this fitting into the pros and cons series? And yeah, that's a good question. This should probably just be a standalone video, but I haven't really been saying the pros and cons so far because I really feel like it depends on your personal perspective. If consumerism is a great thing for you, you love spending all your money, go for it. If that's what you want, then there might be different pros and cons for you as opposed to me who's trying to limit that. But for me, these are the pros. Number 1, not needing a car to get around. Number 2, having an extra obstacle to shopping online. Number 3, seeing less ads. Number 4, going to a supermarket that strictly sells groceries. And number 5, adopting the habit of people here who keep things for a long time and continue to use it rather than throwing it out for the next best thing. On the other hand, a con would be that I'm less likely to find products like toiletries that I am familiar with and comfortable using and want to use. So what I do is I buy them ahead of time in the US when I'm back there, then I bring them over, and that causes my bags to be overweight. That's what always happened to me. So that would be one major con. Obviously, some of the pros might be cons for you, but things can be changed. So you can obviously get a car when you're here. I just don't feel like that's worth it for me personally, working from home, so that is not my lifestyle choice. I will conclude this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, please leave a comment about something you learned or your favorite statistic, and I would love to have you join me in future videos and continue to learn more about life in the DR, pros and cons. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.